Chris, welcome to the show. How can I help?
Thank you for having me. So I'm currently dealing with a workplace conflict. My coworker shows up late to work to relieve me, and it's causing me to be late for my other important obligations. I would like to know, to the host, what should I do if I address an issue to my superior about my coworker always showing up late to work and my superior doesn't do anything about it? What should I do about the matter?
Okay. So have you talked to is your coworker a she?
My coworker is a he.
A he. Okay. So have you talked to him about it at all, or did you just go straight to the supervisor?
I just go straight to the supervisor.
Okay. And what did your supervisor say, so it sounds like he didn't do anything, but what did he say when you had that conversation with him?
Well, my supervisor is she, and she just brushes off. It seems like there's no accountability. So when I talk to her about it, she just says that, don't worry about that. I take care of it. But then after that conversation, it seems like nothing doesn't happen after that.
Okay. And if you went back the next day, the next time it happened, and you said again, hey, it's still happening, do you, what is she going to start getting real annoyed, or is there some sort of negative consequences for you if you do that?
Not so much negative consequences. It's just that she gets annoyed due to the fact that she holds a very demanding position at the job, and she just got so much stuff on her plate right now. She only wants to hear if somebody is asking a question about what they should do in a particular manner, but not so much as far as whenever coworkers are showing up late.
What kind of relationship do you have with your coworker that shows up late?
I don't really have much of a relationship with the coworker. It's just one of those scenarios where he just comes to work and I come to work and we say, hey, how you doing? We do a little bit of small talk. And then after that, so not really much of a relationship. We don't go out for drinks or anything after work.
The reason I ask is because I think a lot of times conflicts can be addressed directly with the person, at least initially, to see if that works. And sometimes people, they don't know that their actions or behaviors are negatively affecting other people until someone tells them. And so I wonder if you went straight to him and just had a really calm and easy conversation, just said, hey, letting him know when you show up late, here's some of the effects that it has on me, wondering if we can work something out to make sure you're here on time, or what's going on your end, or something like that. Would you feel comfortable having that conversation?
I mean, I would. He has a tendency to be at times defensive about certain things because even though I don't have, and I just want to reiterate, even though I don't have a relationship with the individual that's at work, he can at times be very defensive whenever somebody tries to talk some logic into him, if you will. So maybe it's a way I could go about doing that, but he just gets very defensive at times.
He's not very receptive to feedback from people.
Right.
Yeah. Does it happen every day?
Great question. It only happens most days. There's every once in a while where he shows up on time, but most days he's just late for work.
All right, so I'm gonna give you a kind of a three tiered process to see if this will help. Okay, Number one, before you give him any feedback, because he seems to get defensive when people give him feedback, and you don't have a strong relationship with him right now, I would just say for the next few days, when you see him, when he comes to take over, could you just say, hey man, how's it going? How was your night? Or something like that. Just something friendly so that he starts to feel like you actually kind of are interested in his life, or you care about him on not like care, but you care about him on some level as a coworker, just so that he starts to feel like his, he doesn't have to have his guard up around you. And there's a little bit of a trust and relationship that can be built with that. Could you do that first as a first step?
Yeah, I can definitely take that into consideration.
Okay. I would say for week one, if week one you were going to endure, or for the first 3 days, the next 3 days, you're going to endure this kind of late showing up. And instead of saying anything about it, you're going to just be friendly to him. Hey, how's it going? How was your weekend? How was your night? Whatever. Something that's friendly. You could come up with something that happened at work and just kind of laugh about it, or whatever it is that you can build a little bond with him just for like a minute, okay? Step 2 would be the giving feedback. Once you've done that for a few days, if he feels like, hey, this person's talking to me and you're a little friendly with him, then you give him some feedback. And the way that I would suggest giving feedback is breaking it down into sort of 4 steps. And I call this the bear approach. This is behavior, effect, ask, and request, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to call out just the behavior. You're not going to say anything. You're not going to judge it or anything. You're just going to say the behavior. So in this case, the behavior is him showing up late to work. So you'd say, hey, man, when you show up late to work, and then you can make the effect. So the effect is, what effect is it having on you? So tell me, what effect does it have on you when he shows up late to work?
Well, when he shows up late to work, I end up being late to my other job. And even though my other job is just only minutes away from the company that I work at, it still can affect me and just me getting to my other job in time. So it messes things up when I get there late, when I get to my other job late. So it affects me. Definitely.
Okay, so that's a great effect. So you bring in and you say, hey, when you show up late to work, I end up having to run late to my other job, and that can really affect me. And then I would say, the ask part is when you open up the conversation to him and you say, what's going on your end? Like, are you having trouble getting here on time? Or is there something some obligation that you have that's making it tougher? And you can listen to what he says and see who knows what's going on for him. And then you get into making a request, which is, you come up with some solution that maybe can work. If he says, no, there's nothing, I'm just, I just run late or something, then you could say, what can we do to, how can I support you in getting here earlier? Is there any way you could get here on time just so I can get to my other job? And if he says something like, I have this other obligation and I can't get here on time because this other thing's happening and I'm trying, but I can't, then it's time to kind of brainstorm. I mean, maybe you could let your other work know, hey, I'm having an issue with this other job and I'm going to be here 5 minutes after the hour every day or something like that. Mm-hmm. But at least it gives you that option where you're talking to him. He knows how it's affecting you. So he's got that in his mind and you're opening up the conversation at this point so that you can collaborate on some sort of solution. Could you have that type of conversation with him?
No, I didn't have that type of conversation with him yet. Because every time he comes into, or most times when he does show up late, most times when he comes in, he makes all these excuses on why he's running late. And most of it has to do with traffic, if you will. Because I work in the city. I'm from Columbus, Georgia, but I work in the city. And the traffic is horrible. So I can understand, but then at the same time, I'm thinking in my brain, I'm like, well, he could at least leave the house early and then show up to work early, even though his shift don't start until a particular time. He could at least leave the house early and show up to work early,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, maybe he will be more motivated to do that if he knows it's affecting someone else in this way. Maybe he won't. Maybe he won't change the behavior, and then you're going to kind of have to figure out what's the next step. Like, do you have to set a different expectation with your other job, or do you have to talk to your supervisor again? I mean, you could always come up with that later, but at least the first step is letting him know how his behavior is affecting you and opening up the conversation to let him know that it's okay for him to tell you what's going on too. And then you can collaborate on some sort of solution. That's the best second step, let's say, after the first step, which is lowering his guard a little bit, being friendly with him, letting him know that you are interested in what's going on with him. And then the third step, after giving him some feedback, if he's able to change the behavior, if he's actually able to start coming on time, or even if he comes on time sometimes, trying to reinforce positively that behavior that you like. So when he comes to work on time, if you could tell him, hey man, I really appreciate you coming to work on time today. It really helps me a lot. Like, just reinforcing that, being positive about it, can actually motivate him as well. So I'm trying to come at two different ways of motivating him, letting him know the negative consequences and also giving him some positive reinforcement.
Right.
So is that a doable kind of step?
Yeah, I mean, it's very doable. I always want to put myself in other people's shoes. And like I said, I can understand with it being traffic and you living an hour and a half away from the job. But if you're running late and it affects me, and not only affects me, it affects the productivity of the company. And me being a team player, I want to be able to just make sure that whenever I come in and I do my job, that and I'm showing up on time, that everybody else that's around me, that's on my team, is doing a good job just as much as I am. And part of doing a good job is showing up on time. I can be the nice person. I can be like a very nice guy. And one of the things that I also have to work on myself is to not be passive aggressive, but be able to be a little bit more vocal, use some reasoning, and just make sure that this individual that I work alongside with change his behavior and shows to work on time so that I can get to my other job on time.
Absolutely. People a lot of times, maybe like your boss, your supervisor, a lot of people don't hold other people accountable either because they feel like it's going to be too confrontational or aggressive. And so they end up avoiding. And so there's somewhere in the middle between avoidance and aggression that we call assertiveness. And assertiveness can be very gentle, it can be humble, it can be just an easy conversation, but it's still setting some boundaries, setting some expectations, being clear about what you're asking and what the consequences are of people's behavior. So holding people accountable is super, super important. You can tell because when your boss doesn't hold him accountable, it's quite frustrating. So you being able to hold someone accountable is important, and doing that in a sort of kind, humble, but also, somewhat clear and transparent way is going to be important for that relationship and also for just like a general healthy workspace. So is that helpful, that kind of 3-step process?
Yeah, it helps me moving forward. Even the second step and the third step, like I never would have thought about that until you brought that to my attention. I was just thinking to myself, even before calling in, like, okay, maybe I should just keep talking to my supervisor more and more and more until she actually does something, or take it up to the person that's above her. And I don't want to go into that direction and stuff, and I don't want to be the bad guy. But using that 3-step process that you mentioned to me, it shows that I don't have to be the bad guy in this scenario. I could just talk to him from a positive standpoint, so that way we can come up with a positive resolution at the end of the day, and also hold each other, especially hold himself accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the 3-step: be friendly for a few days, then give him some feedback using that bear model, and then positively reinforce anytime you see the positive behavior change. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Thanks so much, Chris. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the Peace Building with Dr. Pollack show. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more workplace conflict advice. Share on social media if you think your friends and colleagues would benefit from this episode. And if you have a workplace conflict and want to be a caller on our show for free coaching and advice, please email podcast@pollackpeacebuilding.com. Thanks.